Hi, Paul Blackburn here to talk to you about the spiritual laws of success, how we can understand that two opposites can both be true at the same time, and to explain to you the new tool that I've developed initially to work on myself, but now that I'm offering to you for free so that you can have a much better life. Basically, this boils down to the fact that I got so much out of it that I want you to have it as well. So, you'll have seen me talk before about the real you, the inner you, your core or your essence, and how it's perfect, and that when you're only a couple of years old, if someone said to you, "Are you beautiful?" you'd have said yes, because you just understand that you are. And most parents can see that their children are perfect. But of course, we develop a self-image as we go along, and it's fair to say that we see ourselves as flawed somehow, as somehow not perfect or not good enough or whatever. That can be simple things like you're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too skinny, all sorts of stuff. So what we do is we develop a defense mechanism so we don't feel so criticized and hurt and judged and damaged, and we call that a personality or an ego, and it's designed to present a different face to the world than the one that I truly feel deeply down. So meanwhile, what happens is the world decides that it's got plans for us, and so we hear things like, you ought to do this, and you're lazy, and you should never do that, and how about you try that, and you ought to do the other, etc., etc. And basically what that conspires to do is create what I call the approval by achievement syndrome. And it simply says that if we go out and we have enough successes, all the judgment stops and we'll be accepted and people will like us better. And it's not just other people that relates to. It's, of course, got a lot to do with ourselves. So when we have a success, that's actually an excuse that we use to approve of ourselves more. Conversely, a failure is what we use as an excuse to withdraw approval for ourselves. So most of our efforts in life are designed to achieve more, but if you look at it, a list of achievements doesn't make you feel better. So I've been on this quest for a long time now to figure out how to feel better from the inside working out, and I've come up with a tool that I've been using myself, and I want to explain to you how that works. So here's a classic example. We can summarize this thing by saying, if you give yourself enough of what you need, you'll end up having everything you want in life. But if you give yourself everything that you want, you'll get nothing that you need. And so I've got some examples there. If you constantly give yourself what you want, which is, let's say chocolate or fun or holidays or whatever, then you don't develop any sense of achievement from the point of view of building momentum and creating something in terms of a career or a body that you're happy with or any of that kind of stuff. But if you were to give yourself enough of what you need, and let's say, for example, you gave yourself 10% of every dollar that you've ever earned, it didn't go to you, it went into an investment account, then even if you're the world's worst investor, then after 20 or 30 years in the workforce, you would have an absolute huge pile of money, and you'd be able to live off that. So it's a classic example of what I want to deal with, and basically it boils down to this. Most people figure that they'll be happy if they can find a balance point. You'll hear people talk all the time about, I need more balance in my life. If I just get my work-life balance worked out, and I'm so busy with the kids, etc., all that sort of stuff, that we figure that there's a spot in the middle that would be right. But my experience is there isn't. That what we have to do is we have to give ourselves enough of what we need and then shoot over and give ourselves plenty of what we want. And so I'm going to talk to you about speed across the middle, that in actual fact, it's important that you get the things that you want. It's important that you have fun. It's important that you have possessions. It's important that you get achievements. It's important that you have enough chocolate, alcohol, go easy on the alcohol. But it's important that you have the things in life that are treats. That's what we use as rewards, and why not have them if they're there? But it's also important that you can give yourself the right kind of exercise and nutrition and education and rest and the things that are actually going to revitalize and refresh you, so that you can bring high level energy to whatever it is that you want to do. So the reality for most people is that the middle is not going to work, because it's kind of like, how do you find the balance point there? What we need to do is we need to indulge at both ends freely and easily and move quickly across the middle where we're kind of not so balanced. So that's the trick to this whole thing, and I've got a bunch of these things for you to have a look at, and we'll talk about what you can do about them as we go on. So have a look at another concept that our culture teaches very strongly, and that is that you should be strong, that you should be out there, you should stand up for yourself, that you should go for it, that burn the midnight candle, burn the candle at both ends, go for it, resist people who are doing wrong by you, etc., etc. And I would agree, you've got to do that stuff, but you've also got to be vulnerable. Otherwise, you never fall in love. You'll never be able to relate to your children. So we need to be soft and tender and available, truthful, and open. So there isn't a balance point there. You can't be kind of like half of steel and half of marshmallow. You actually need steel when you need steel and marshmallow when you need marshmallow. So it's speed across the middle here that works really well. So really what I want you to do here as we go through this is grab a bit of paper and draw these arrows and put yourself, if you have a bias, towards one end or the other. So for example, you might find that, okay, so what I've done is I've worked on the strength thing more than the vulnerability thing. I don't really understand the vulnerable thing. Kind of scares me a little bit, makes me feel like I might get taken advantage of or whatever. So put a dot on the arrow up above the middle point where those two arrows cross, so that what you can say to yourself is, okay, I'm biased towards the strength end, or on the blue one, I'm biased towards the needs end or the wants end. Now, kind of be a little bit forceful in this area. I'm going to show you what to do with it later, and the more dots are better. But you might find that in one of these two that we've explained already, that you're pretty quick across that arrow. That means you're cool with it. There's no need for you to do something with it later. We're actually using this as a tool to assess where we are at the spiritual level, on the inside level. You'll see that this is all about what we bring to what we do. And these dots are going to be helpful, but don't expect a dot on every arrow, because on some of these arrows you're going to be just fine. You'll be able to snap from one end to the other at lightning speed, which is the natural human capacity. You won't have to learn how to do that. That's part of how you are. We look at another arrow, then you'll see that we use the expression human being, meaning that your existence is actually enough. And if you're a parent, you know this. You love your children regardless of what they're doing. In fact, you can be disgusted by what they're up to. At the other end of the scale, we've been taught that being busy and striving and searching and wanting to achieve is very important. And you'll see that, that goes along with being strong and being capable and those kind of things. So these arrows do have relationships to each other. But you'll notice that, all you've got to do is stare into the eyes of somebody that you love, and you instantly don't have to do anything. And everything that you do actually doesn't matter. And certainly when I was suffering from cancer and it looked like I might die at one stage, then my kids just wanted me to turn up and be with them. There wasn't really anything we needed to do together. So give yourself a dot on that arrow, either side of the center, if you feel like that's a good judgment of where you are or have been for a while. I'll move to another one, and this is one of the big ones in our culture. The truth is, we don't know what's going to happen next, but we love to make predictions about it. And the reason behind that is that the fear of the unknown is one of the greatest fears of mankind. So what we do to deal with the fear of the unknown, the unknowability of what's going to happen, is we start making predictions, because the predictions make us secure. So it's kind of like, we may not like it, but at least we know what's coming. And of course, one of the greatest predictions of all time that never came true was that the computer was going to create the paperless office. And, computers started turning up 15 or 20 years ago, and we're only just now seeing offices calling themselves paperless. Entire forests died in the name of, I'll just make a copy of that. But we like to predict, which way an election is going to go, what will happen if this party gets in, or what will happen if the other party gets in, or what will happen if you don't do your homework, or whatever. Our life is absolutely cram-packed with predictions which are at least 99% sheer bullshit and just made up on the spot. The truth is, to really experience life, you've got to step into the unknown. So it's a little bit like being versus doing. So like I said, these things have relationships to each other. Give yourself a dot on that arrow if you reckon you're one side of the center or the other, for the purpose of what we're going to do later. We'll explore another one now, and that's the concept of we are all one, that you and I are brothers and sisters on this planet, and that perhaps we are brothers and sisters with all the other animals and trees and whatever, maybe even the planet itself, and you'll have had times of connection. But you'll have had times of separation as well. And so when we're separated, we feel alone and we feel disengaged and we feel disconnected. And I'm saying that's a good thing, because sometimes you need to just get on with it. There are times when you need to just knuckle down, close the door to your office, put on the loud music, and actually just get into what you've got to do. There are other times when you need to connect, where you need to take a walk in the forest and feel the trees and be with them, that kind of thing. So at one level, the truth is we are powerfully connected to those around us, and at the other level we're not. So when I had the cancer, I knew that my family, all of them, individually would shrink themselves down to the size of a match head, have themselves injected into my bloodstream and go around my body eating the cancer, knowing that it was going to kill them and save me. But it was me who had to go and have the operation. I was actually alone when it came time for things like chemo and radiation and recovery and those kind of things. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't feel supported. What I'm saying is, many things, you just have to do them on your own and get on with them. And we need to realise that it is true that we are within our own body. We need to do the things that we need to do. So what you'll see here is that what I'm alluding to as these arrows develop is that as you find yourself putting dots on it, so put a dot on the separation and unity one to the left or the right of the middle, what you'll see is that your character is starting to emerge. So that if you're a loner and you spend a lot of time by yourself, you're obviously going to be towards the separation end of that kind of thing. That will produce what we call programs and methods of operation and behaviour, which we can look at and see if they are suiting you or not. So let's go to another one. This is a big one in the goals field. So, you will have heard me say that you're not going to get anything that you don't really desire. You've really got to, in terms of manifesting the things that you want in your life, then one of the key ingredients is how much you really want it. So that we call that goals, targets, wishes, desires, that kind of thing. But you also have to let it go. You also have to know that, when you go and get your brand new Porsche, that, nobody thinks any more of you. In fact, some people think less. And you need to realise it's just a car. So the question is not, do you get a new car or a new house or a new job, but could you give that house or that car to your brother or your friend so that they can have a go at it for a while? So once you understand that concept, then what you'll find is that you can be at both ends. So if we use a sporting example, then, in the final at Wimbledon, you're not going to win that unless you've got a great desire to do that, and that means to play the best tennis that you've ever played. But of course, you'll hear those tennis players saying, I'm just going to go out and enjoy my tennis. And what they mean is, I'm trying to turn it into just another game, because if I can detach from its importance, I will play at my best. So once again, how much do things have meaning for you? How secure do you feel because of the things that you own, which means that you're up the desire end? How much do you recognise that those are just things and you could easily live without them? That will put you down the detach end. So if it's appropriate, put a dot on that arrow, bearing in mind that might have been the arrow that was you're just fine with that one. Another one of these principles is the idea of scarcity versus abundance. You'll see that all of these things are opposites. They can both be true at the same time. So, in fact, that's the principle of this tool. So scarcity, what do we mean there? Well, our culture teaches us that there's not enough to go around, that you'll have to get in and get your share. If you don't, others will. That makes us grasping and desperate and snatchy and mean and nasty and those kind of things. You'll see it in a big family when it comes to food. They all eat quickly. That's kind of based on the idea that, there's not actually as much of this as we would want if we could have it the way we want. On the other hand, at the abundance level, you'll see that if you can develop the concept that there's plenty more fish in the ocean, then you don't have any problems sharing. And if you can get the idea that there's plenty more money out there, you've just got to create enough value for other people to be able to get it, then you'll have no trouble making it turn up. So there are many things that we are abundant in, and the chances are you're very abundant in friendship and relationship and air and water and safety and security and all those kind of things. But you may feel scarce on others. So have a look at that arrow, put a dot at either end depending on where you figure you are on either side of the middle. Remember, that's a habitual approach that we're talking about, when in actual fact what we need is speed across the middle. So second last is the me first concept versus service. Most of us want to be of service to our fellow man. We actually want the planet to be a better place because we turned up. And that's summarised in this expression, your wish for you is my wish for you. In other words, if I could take care of my own needs well enough, then I can just be of service to you and truly make a difference. Up the other end is the me first principle, which simply says, when the oxygen masks pop out of the roof in the plane, put yours on first, otherwise you are not able to help anybody because you'll be unconscious. What that means is that we actually got to develop a me first concept in the other parts of our life that are important. And I mentioned diet and nutrition and sleep and rest and those kind of things because they're all about putting you first and getting what you need. The ability to say no to other people so that you can keep yourself in good condition, because if you're not in good condition, then you can't serve. So these are two very apparently opposite but vitally linked concepts. And once again, what I'm asking is how quickly can you get from one side to the other, because you need to do both. Now, if you're habitually somewhere either side of the centre, put a dot on that arrow. And our final one is that time vanishes and that time stands still. In other words, it goes up in smoke, and if you've ever heard parents talking, you'll hear them saying the kids grew up while I wasn't watching. Listen to anybody at work and I say, look at that, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I haven't even got started on my to-do list yet and I've been busy all day. Where has all the time gone? It's gone up in smoke. At the other level, all you've got to do for time to stand still is look into the eyes of someone that you love, take a deep breath, and time will stand still. We have this with holidays too. We can we turn up at a holiday and we've got 10 days at the beach, say for example, and that feels like an eternity. 10 whole days to do whatever you want, go to the beach every day, and yet days number 7 we're starting to notice that it's all vanished and where's it gone. So we need to be able to be at both ends of this scale as well. Once again, what's important is how quickly you can get across the middle. So that's this tool that I've developed that I'm saying is yours and yours to have for as long as you want and use in any way that you want. I call it the spiritual laws tool because there are 9 concepts that I've discovered that I need to be really good with and up to date with to keep me in balance. And you'll see that this has got nothing to do with my work, my relationships. This is all internal, completely internal. So that's why I call it a spiritual tool. You'll know that I don't call myself religious, but I call myself spiritual. So that's I measure myself. I put the dots here on a regular basis, and that's what's produced this massive change in my life in the last 3 months. But there's a couple of things to be aware of, and the first one is speed across the middle is directly dependent on your connection with your inner self. So what that simply means is that you've got to be connected to the inner you. That relationship's got to be fresh and it's got to be new and it's got to be kept up to date on a daily basis. And the more balanced you are, the more you can understand that you are merely a presence watching what's going on, then the quicker you can get through the middle. So the real question is, well, how quickly do I get through what slows me down from getting through the middle? And that's where I started to have the personal breakthroughs. So the first kind of mud or quicksand that you've got to run through is your view of yourself. Getting across the middle is definitely slowed down if you think that you're not too smart, or if you think that it takes you a long time to adjust. I had Mary say to me a little while ago, there's a lot of work for me to do on that, meaning some personal development. I'll have to really get to work on that. And that's her view of herself as, I'll get it, but it's going to take a long time. So she's actually dictating the speed across the middle just with her words. That comes from her view of herself rather than a connection with the possibility that maybe this could happen in the blink of an eye. And what I want to suggest to you is it can actually happen in the blink of an eye. What we've got to do is remove our opinion of ourselves because it's just an opinion. It's not the only thing we've got to deal with. When we started, I talked about personality or ego, and that also slows it down because if you're a person who's rip, tear and bust, then everything needs to be done straight away. If you're a person who's got to get things perfect, then once again, things have got to be slowed down and done in your personal kind of a way, the way that keeps you happiest. So you kind of got to watch out for that. So by now, what we've got is we've actually got mud, and we're trying to run through mud in the middle there. So that's where the work gets done. And of course, the rest of the world's got its ideas about what you should do, how you should behave, what you should say, where you should go, and all that sort of stuff. And that ring around there, the rest of the world, specifically refers to your ability to say to the rest of the world that it can go jump. Specifically, it revolves around expressions like, no, I choose not to do that because I don't have the time, I don't want to make the time. Or I'm not going to go to your party, or I'm not going to take up being the treasurer of the P&C Association, or whatever it is, so that the rest of the world doesn't have a chance to start the clog process. Because as soon as it does, then what happens is you start to use your personality to deal with it. So when someone says to you, oh, please, could you be, the treasurer of the P&C Association, a blunt personality will say no and offend everyone and end up having to do it just to kind of, deal with offending everybody. But the meek personality is going to try and talk their way out of it, give up in the end, and the self-image is going to get involved and say, oh, I feel guilty, someone's got to do it, and I'm leaving everybody by themselves. So these things are actually the things that slow down the journey through the middle. What does that mean? Well, essentially, that's a tool. It's a graphic. I've put it there so you can download it. I've got it in other places where you can grab it as well if you can't get it out of this movie. That's a tool. We just changed the words to symbols so that you could print it off and put it in your wallet. But what have you got to do? Basically, what you've got to do is meditate regularly. So that's simply a matter of getting it into your day. Rather than saying, I'm too busy, I could wish I could fit it in, it's got to go into your personal success routine. You've got to practice mindfulness, because mindfulness brings you into the present moment, and the present moment is where those rings in the middle start to disappear. Because when you're being mindful, you don't have a personality and you're not part of what the world's telling you to do, and so those things start to vanish. So mindfulness is a critically important thing to do. At some point, you've got to have a go at purifying everything. And what I mean by that is, at some point, you've got to go on a diet that you figure is going to give your body a break from whatever it's been going through, and an exercise program that helps it to get fit and clean and healthy. At some point, you've got to identify your thoughts as critically important and start eliminating the negative thoughts by focusing on the positive. And at some point, you've got to clear your emotions so that you're not a pile of anger walking around looking for a place to happen, or you're not a pile of sadness ready to burst into tears whenever, so that you come clean at what you do rather than clogged up in that middle section of that diagram. That means getting present. That means taking time to walk on the beach without an agenda to get fit, just to walk on the beach and experience it, or the forest, or whatever it is that works for you. And you've got to study self-awareness, because that tool that I just gave to you really revolves around awareness. We'll be stuck at one end for as long as we need to be, or as long as we can. We'll be stuck at one end forever unless we become aware that it's unhealthy to stay there. In fact, what we do is we start to build generalizations and rationalizations that say that it's okay. So study self-awareness by reading the good books, the Bible, the Quran, the Course in Miracles, Tao Te Ching, anything from the Dalai Lama, all of that sort of stuff, and embrace mystery. And what I mean by mystery is the fact that, by some miracle, you can get from one side of that arrow to the other side in the blink of an eye, and the world actually is mysterious, because that allows for magic. Of course, what you've got to do is dump your baggage. That's critically important. What you've got to do is break away from personality, and that means stop justifying that I am just the way that I am, and start to break it down by being present, by embracing mystery, by studying self-awareness, by purifying everything, by practicing mindfulness, and by meditating. And finally, let go of judgment. Not just judgment of other people, but judgment of yourself. In fact, I think we judge other people so that we can practice to be really vicious and nasty practicing ourselves, on judging ourselves, that is. In summary, what I'm saying is that's a tool. What you need to do is use the tool regularly, because it causes you to check in and alter your behaviours, etc. And I'm going to suggest that you review this movie now and then, just to kind of update you on how it's meant to be employed. The tool is meant to be employed, and you may want to attend our masterclass in the spiritual laws if that fits for you. What's in that masterclass? Funny you should ask, but essentially what I've done is I've decided, okay, we need 5 sessions where we can deal with these paradoxes, 2 at a time per webinar, working personally with you so that we can break you through where you're locked. So that's specifically the purpose of it, is to break you out of being locked at one end of the arrow or the other. Those are 5 weeks in a row. We spend an hour or more together working in a group breaking our way through those paradoxes. There are worksheets for you to do. They're not onerous, they're not workbooks, they're worksheets so that you can be aware of where you are with that work. And what I want to do is put meditation in your hand each week. That's so a different meditation for 5 weeks in a row, so you can meditate some of the bad stuff out and get some of the good stuff in. So that's what I call a masterclass, limited to a small group, which I'll explain in a moment. It's about $800 worth in terms of what I figure it would normally sell for. I try not to make weird things up, but essentially, if you want to invest in that, then we're saying $47 a week for 10 weeks, or if you want to do up front, $397 would get you into that program. But because I really, really want you to do it, then, and that's because the benefits for you, then I've got some bonuses for acting now. So get into it right now, and then what I'll do is I'll give you the recordings of the original once only ever spiritual laws of success workshop that I did 2 or 3 years ago. We sell them for $197 all the time. In fact, they're one of our most popular products. And Tim Devereaux from Perth says that he is up to listening number 19 of that particular set of recordings. He didn't go to the original workshop, but absolutely loves it. It's been to it 19 times. So I'm going to recommend that to you. And of course, the big one, what I want to do is give you my book. And this is the textbook for the program. So it's the whole thing, the tool explain, how to develop the awareness, everything that you can imagine extended out to be actually a textbook for a highly powerful program. Now, I'm working on the book at the moment, so the release date for that is later on in the year. How do we price that? I don't know how we do that, but essentially what we're saying is we'll give you the lot, and if you're a couple, then we'll change it from $47 a week to $57 a week, so it's only an extra $10, or $497 up front. So that's the story there, but here's my solemn promise. I'm only going to print 100 copies of that book, and I'm only going to let those 100 people do this program. So person number 101 misses out. Now, to enroll in this program, then, and I'm going to give you a personally signed to you numbered copy of the book. What you've got to do is you've got to email Julie at beyondsuccess.com.au, and in the subject line of that email, put the words "enroll me please," so that she knows to pull that out of her regular feed. You've got to tell her which payment plan you prefer. You've got to indicate whether we can use a credit card that we have on file for you at the moment, or whether you want her to use you personally. Include your best number for that. In each of those webinars, we're going to explore 2 of the paradoxes. Those webinars are Wednesday, March the 30th, Wednesday, April the 6th, Wednesday, April the 13th, Wednesday, April the 27th, and Wednesday, May the 4th. And we're going to get the book to you ASAP, and it'll serve both as a textbook and as a massive review of the whole program. What you've got to do right now is click that link that you see appearing right there. That's a clickable link in this movie, and that'll open up an email, go straight to Julie, or it'll open up the web page that you can sign up. I don't actually know what the link does, but it's what you need to do. Bye-bye.